Welcome to the King Street Cinema podcast. My name is Andy, and I'll be with you for the next about an hour and a half to talk about movies. This podcast is, of course, brought to you by King Street Cinema in Ipswich. This episode is the second now annual Halloween special. We'll be focusing on 4 classic movies, all of which will be shown at that great cinema over Halloween. And I'm going to be joined by the cinema's very own James and Dan to talk about all 4 of these films, as I say. Stick around at the end of the episode as well, because local artist illustrator Ian Pointer, who you may remember from our Back to the Future episode, is going to have a quick chat with us about Batman 1966. He came along to the Batman Day at the cinema and had never seen that movie before. So I had my recorder on me and I thought I'd just record his views on that movie, just a bit of a bonus for this episode. So James will be chatting with us about Night of the Living Dead, The Exorcist and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then at the end of the show Dan will be joining us to talk about the Stephen King, John Carpenter should-be classic Christine. And then he's going to be updating us on what else is going on at the cinema as well. So let's get straight to it. This is the trailer for Night of the Living Dead.
To get you, Barbara.
James is with me. We've got 3 horror films to talk about this episode, as I said in the intro earlier. We're going to start with the 1968 classic, Night of the Living Dead.
That's right, we are, yeah.
Which is a film I caught on late night TV when I was quite young, and I loved it. Yeah. You a big fan of this movie?
I am a big fan of this film. I've seen it many, many times. I believe the first time I saw it was probably similar to you. I think I know I was 13. I remember pretty much exactly when it was. So I was 13 years old and it was off on the TV. Yeah, I think I watched it directly. Like, I didn't tape it and watch it. I think I saw it when it was on. Not sure if I taped it on that occasion. Don't think I did, I think I just watched it. But yeah, anyway. It was great. And made me think a hell of a lot. In fact, I talked to someone about this recently, talking about zombie movies. That it wasn't the first zombie film I had seen. I'm pretty sure I had seen Dawn before. Yeah. I think maybe 2 or 3 years previous.
That's one of those. There was 4 sequels. Yeah. Dawn of the Dead was the second.
It was the second film. Came out 10 years after the first.
Yeah.
And again, I was just thinking about being young. I mean, like I say, I think I must have been about 10 when I saw that, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. But the violence and all that kind of stuff wasn't what scared me, though, and didn't scare me about the first one, about Night of the Living Dead. What really got me is the thought of something happening, like, something that you can't explain. No one can explain why something cataclysmic, apocalyptic is happening, and ultimately you're doing your best to survive, but deep down you're just not gonna.
Yeah.
You just can't. You're not going to get through this. And that's what got me. That's what made me think a hell of a lot. After I saw the film, I just thought it was obviously night time, and I remember just lying in bed thinking about what might be outside. What could be just lurking around. I mean, what if this kind of thing happened? And so that really stuck with me a hell of a lot.
I mean, I don't give too many spoilers away, but most people have seen it.
Yeah.
The end is what got me at this movie. And that's what got people at the time, because it wasn't expected. You've got to think, this was for the time, it was very violent. I mean, I believe it's
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's gone down to
certainly.
15 now, but it was...
Oh, no, without question. I mean, not only violence, though. There's different types of violence, aren't there? Because there were movies that were out earlier than this that were probably, you could say, more gory.
Yeah.
So, like splatter films and stuff like that. But this one has certain kinds of violence in it which are quite visceral.
Yeah.
Like the eating of flesh and stuff like that. And there's also a killing in it which is quite, I think, unusual for the time, and still quite probably unheard of with the child.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I remember seeing that for the first time and being really like stunned by it. Like, whoa, like that was something I certainly hadn't seen anything like that up to that point, and I haven't really seen many things quite like that since, to be perfectly honest. Yeah.
But very influential movie. I mean, in a way, I think this sort of, I'd put it as the film that sort of changed zombie movies. Before, it was more sort of voodoo.
Absolutely, it was the first one of the what we you'd call like eating people.
Yeah.
Because before that, like say, zombies is an old voodoo Haitian kind of thing, where bringing people back from the dead in order to do your bidding.
Yeah.
These are not that at all.
Yeah.
No, these aren't that kind of zombie.
And it's seen as a cult classic, but it actually was a big hit as well, wasn't it?
Drive-in, massive hit in the drive-ins. Huge.
It took 250 times its budget.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously it was very low budget.
Yeah, what was it we were saying about? Probably at the most 120,000.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's not a
bit, but for an indie film, but still nothing really compared to
And it was it George A. Romero's first movie?
I don't think it was his first. It might have been his first feature. He'd definitely done stuff on television and things, and had worked a lot previous, because he was, I think, at the time of making it, he was, I think, in his late 20s, early 30s when he made it. So he'd worked a lot before, had a lot of experience with the camera. But it might be his first feature film. I'm not sure.
Okay, because it was definitely his first hit, wasn't it? It was his first. And he went on to do loads of horrors. I think he did direct all the sequels, maybe one later one that.
So the first three, so Dawn and Day, which are I generally consider like the trilogy, the original trilogy, and then he did, was it Land of the Dead?
Land of the Dead. There's one called Diary of the Dead as well.
Yeah, I think he made that one as well.
Maybe there's one coming out that he.
Yeah, I think he was working on before, because he died.
Yeah.
I can't remember when, maybe 10 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
I know he was working on one.
I think he was. I was reading something about one either being finished or one that he's not. It's not him. Yeah. But I think he wrote the script or something.
Oh, yeah,
therefore
that's what it is.
Because, I mean, the film's been sort of ripped off, so to speak, quite a few times. I mean,
absolutely.
There's the movie Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah. Any zombie film, pretty much, that comes afterwards, whether you were talking about homaging or just straight ripping it off or parodying or whatever, it is. We go back to this. Yeah. This is the film where it begins.
Yeah. And also, you see this movie spoofed a lot.
Yeah.
How many horror films have you seen when they watch TV and this is on?
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that, which I'm sure you know.
Yeah, it's a public domain film.
Yeah, and it was never copyrighted, was it? Do you know why that was?
No, I don't know the ins and outs of it.
So that's, I mean, countless TV shows, and they'll be sitting around on Halloween watching TV, and that's on, which I think's helped it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, probably not financially, but it's helped it get an audience.
Yeah.
And the famous line is, "I'm coming to get you, Barbara." Is it something like that?
Yeah, right at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting movie in that respect, that it has these kind of. I think that is the very famous line, or the way he says it, which I remember seeing at the time and thinking, it sounds like he's doing a bit, like he's parodying something, but I don't know if he is or not, because it's just the way he says it, almost like it sounds a bit like Vincent Price, which I was never quite sure. Is that what he's doing?
I always thought it was a genuine sort of horror spoof, but it could be something more specific.
Yeah, I've never found out, and I don't know if there is a thing. Like I don't know if it, there is anything.
It's a bit like when we were kids. A lot of people knew the film Leprechaun because of Garth from Wayne's World doing a little bit about it.
Which is weird because, I think I'd seen Leprechaun around about the same time that I saw Wayne's World as well. And thinking that's really odd that they're doing it, that they're referencing it. It's like, okay.
It wasn't a massive hit.
No, it was a nothing film, ultimately. And it's not like they came out about, Wayne's World maybe a year later?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it was current, I suppose, but
I always like that because it was just Garth being scared of something.
So
it isn't scary.
It is pretty funny stuff.
But, have you
watch Wayne's World?
Which will be coming up to its, I think, 36th anniversary. So why aren't you showing it?
Anyway,
so have you seen this on the big screen before? Because I haven't.
No, I don't. Because I was thinking about this earlier. I'm pretty sure I haven't. No.
Yeah. And this is what I'm looking forward to, and it's on the Friday night. I'm not sure how many showings you've got of it. It's definitely on the Friday before Halloween.
It's on the 27th, which is the Friday, and I think we've got one more showing of it as well, and maybe on the Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this is an 8 o'clock showing, so perfect time. I'm very excited.
Yeah.
So, anything else you want to add, or should we?
I think I just come and see it, really. I mean, if you haven't, I'm sure most people have already. It's one of those films that I think by this point, if you're a horror fan of any type, I'm sure you've already seen it.
Yeah.
And now that it's a 15, younger people can come and see it. Yeah. So that's good. If you're a young person, teenager, and wanting to see it for the first time, I think seeing it at the cinema for the first time, that's the first time you've ever seen it, that'd be brilliant.
But it's also one that, if you're interested in actual filmmaking,
absolutely.
I mean, this is low budget. It was all mostly his friends in it, wasn't it?
I think they made it so he's from Pennsylvania, George Romero, and I think it was shot in Pennsylvania. Everyone involved with it is from the area. It's kind of like a homegrown movie, really. And it's one of those things. There were a few directors at that time that became famous that did a similar thing. Not Hollywood. People that were from another geographical part of the country of the United States and made films in those areas and became kind of famous for that. Yeah, and so that's a very cool thing as well.
Okay, so that's being shown on. Definitely the 27th.
Yes, without question.
That's very same evening, straight afterwards, or more or less straight afterwards, is shown the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, one of my favourite horror films, if not my favourite horror film.
Yeah, we've discussed this before, haven't we, about favourite horror movies, and it always comes up.
Yeah. So, first we're going to play some audio of the trailer, which might just sound very noisy. And then we'll be back to discuss the Tobe Hooper classic.
What happened was true. The most bizarre and brutal series of crimes in America. This is the movie that is just as real, just as close, just as terrifying as being there. Even if one of them survives, what will be left? The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. After you stop screaming, you'll start talking about it.
Okay, so I'm freaked out by the trailer already.
Oh, yeah. It's a scary one, isn't it? It's loud.
We did listen to it, didn't we?
Well, we played it a few times at work, and it's pretty scary stuff.
It's a good trailer. It's a good trailer. And just to confirm, while we were not watching that trailer, Night of the Living Dead is on the 29th and 27th.
Yeah, so I was right. So it's Friday and the Sunday.
Yeah. So, 1974's Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
Toby Hooper's first proper film. He'd done some student films, that sort of thing first, which are available.
Yeah.
This is a film that, for me, growing up, was the big it's banned, but everyone knows about it movie. Now, it was banned, but it did get a release in this country when it came out for, I think it got in just a London run.
Right, yeah.
And then it was just outright banned. And not for the reasons people think, not because people get hacked up with chainsaws.
No.
It was for, do you know why?
I actually don't.
Terrorisation of women and threat to defenceless women, which I totally get.
That's completely, no ban, as far as I'm concerned, is, unless things are actually illegally happening in a film, no film should be banned. But if you are going to, if that's a reason, that's your reasoning, then yes, sure. Okay, absolutely, yes. Because that does happen in the film. Yeah. Certainly.
Your first experience with when did you
it's a funny one, again. I think a little later on, definitely didn't see an illegal copy. There was many chances, I think, when I was younger that I could have seen a pirated legal copy, but I didn't. And so I saw it when it was first released. I believe it was 99.
It was 99,
yeah. I remember me and
you'd have been 18. You'd have been the perfect age.
Yeah, 18 years old. I remember me and my friend, we watched something first, and then it was really late, and he was saying, oh, maybe I should just go home. And then we put it on. I thought, oh, let's put it on. And then about 2 minutes into it, he's like, no, I'm going home.
It had that thing about it, didn't it? I could get myself in trouble for this, but I saw it illegally.
Right.
I was in high school, quite early years of high school as well.
Right.
And a mate of mine had a pirate copy of it, lent it to me. And I got 2 video recorders, leaded it up, copied it, which made the quality even worse than it already was.
Yeah, that's what happened.
And then pretty much anyone who wanted it for a cost could then have a copy of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah. So you were proper breaking the law.
Breaking that law. Yeah. But all I would charge is like bag of sweets and a blank video cassette. Yeah. But the first time I saw it, I remember going in, one of the few times with a film I've been weary before putting it on. It had that sort of stigma around it, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it did freak me out. And famously, there's hardly any blood in it.
Yes. It's all atmosphere.
Yeah, and that's what got me. And the shots, the close-up shots of her eyes, the screaming, the grandpa bit really got me. Which now, on a more cleaned-up version, doesn't seem as scary to me.
Well, I from my just thinking of having a really dodgy copy that looks all beat up and stuff, that to me sounds a hell of a lot, because it's a very grimy looking film anyway, so to even extend that even further, I think would make it more scary, like those bits where you see, because the makeup's it's not bad, but it's not incredible. With the quality being lower, it would make it more
for me,
scary.
This is an outright 5-star horror movie. The only bit that kind of doesn't look authentic and real is that when you see the granddad, that's clearly makeup.
Yeah, sure.
But other than that, the rest of the movie,
I agree. I mean, the set design is brilliant. It's fantastic. Just the way that they've the guy, I can't remember his name. I saw a documentary many years ago about the film, and the guy spoke at length about his creations for the movie, and they're brilliant. It just looks so authentic, so real.
And it feels real. The conversations feel real. I mean, some of the acting isn't great.
Absolutely.
But once it gets going and the characters are in distress, it's good acting. Probably because they were treated quite badly on set.
Yeah.
But
sadly, yes.
Yeah. But that's why it feels real. At the beginning, it kind of feels almost like a documentary.
Certainly what he was going for.
Yeah. So therefore, to me, the not so great acting kind of feels like a bunch of teenagers, if they know there's a camera on them,
absolutely.
trying to act like teenagers.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. And all the family in it, the performance by them are great, I think.
Yeah. There's not anyone that I can remember thinking. It's been a while since I've seen, in fact, any of these films. Yeah. But I've seen them many times. But I can't remember anyone in it ever me thinking, oh no, they're not good.
Yeah. And it's one of those that Leatherface, played by Gunnar Hansen.
That's right.
This went on to become an iconic horror figure up there with Jason, Freddy,
Yeah.
and that.
Absolutely. An early one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's 5 years before Michael Myers, isn't it? So yeah, and kind of the face of the film, the image of holding the chainsaw up and stuff.
Yeah.
And as I say, that's one of the first, apart from maybe anyone I can think of before this, maybe is Norman Bates.
Yeah.
And like with many characters, like in the sequels and stuff, they tried to sort of almost turn him into the hero and that. But in this, it's just that, I don't know how to describe it, not zombie-like, but just emotionless character.
Well, I understand that thinking, I suppose, but I think he's quite an emotional character because
the way he reacts.
Is I mean, people keep coming into his house and he's freaking out about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ultimately what's happening.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a weird kind of thing. You could say it's almost they're invading his space.
Yeah, I suppose when I say emotions, I mean doesn't care about his actions. There's no remorse.
Sure.
Well, sorry, I worded that wrong. You know what I mean? No remorse for what...
I'd say amoral in the sense of what we'd consider societal norms, sure.
Yeah.
You know, but certainly a very emotional character.
Yeah. But you could see why he'd get under the skin of the viewer.
Completely, because it's almost not human.
Yeah.
You know, so
And,
like an animal, like a
But this is also one, like we're going to talk about the Exorcist. We mentioned the sequels to Night of the Living Dead. There's some classic sequels to that movie, the Day of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead especially. Whereas this, I love the second one, which is the same director, but more of a comedy.
Certainly. Yes.
And then after that, I don't think it's really had a good sequel.
No,
watchable sequel. Don't get me wrong.
Once you don't want to go. I generally wouldn't want to go back. I mean, the third one, I was like, it wasn't a bad attempt. And Viggo Mortensen's very good in it because he generally is. So, but apart from that,
they've done a lot.
Yeah, I think there's about 7 or 8 now.
Shall I do a quick run through?
Yeah, if you like.
Off my head. Part 2, then the second one's called Leatherface. Yeah. Then there's The Next Generation with Matthew McConaughey.
That's right, yeah. That's a very old film.
Yeah, that's... and then, I'm not sure if there's one in between. There was a remake.
Yeah.
So that's 5, including the first one. Then a prequel to the remake.
Yeah.
And then they done Texas Chainsaw 3D.
Right, yes.
Then another one just called Leatherface.
Yeah.
And then one last year or the year before called Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Again,
so that's 9.
9, yeah, that sounds right.
And that is far too many.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, I think 4, 5. Yeah, I've seen 5 of them. And after that one, so the original remake after the Next Generation one. Yeah. That when I saw that, I was like, that'll do for me.
Yeah, I did not like that one.
No.
I can watch the sequels, and the newer one, I think it was made for Netflix. They were supposed to bring back. What's her name? Marilyn Burns.
Yeah, Marilyn Burns.
But then she died.
Then she died. Yeah.
So they got someone else, but that character is in it.
Right.
So that's one of the. You know when they do a sequel but skip all the other sequels, it's one of those sequels.
Yes, it's like a reimagining or something.
They do
like
this
that.
thing now, don't they, where they give it the same name as the original, just to confuse me.
Yeah, me personally, when just thinking about any film that I'm a big fan of, that has many sequels, I generally don't want to go too deep into the sequels because I find that you can always appreciate the original anyway. It doesn't really matter but how many more films they make that are not anywhere near worthy of the original. But for me personally, it's not for me. Because I don't necessarily think that people shouldn't see them or that they should be made, but it's just not for me.
Yeah, I mean, I like. We've say the Jason and Freddy. I like the sequels because it became a thing. Yeah, that was and. Definitely doesn't take anything away from the originals. I
would say for those though, they're of my childhood, and so that's when I was a kid, you just want to take in as much as possible of something that you like. Yeah. But as an adult now, it's like if I hear that another film is being made of something that I like, I'm not like, I really need to go see that.
I think there's trends. There's always some sort of horror film, kind of has like a sort of 6 to 10 year run of constant sequels.
Yes.
You had Final Destination, you had Saw, and that Freddy and Jason were that. Whereas the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Exorcist and a few others, it seems that they're constantly trying to get another hit out of it.
Yes, to bring it back,
and
revive
it rarely works.
Yeah.
The only time I've really seen it's worked is with Halloween in the last.
Yes, more recently,
Yeah.
Which is one that I saw because I heard that it was very different, and I mean Jamie Lee Curtis, if I hear that she's going to do it again, but it's not going to be like some awful hacky, just whatever, bring her back for no reason other than it's her.
Yeah.
But they're actually going to do something interesting with the character. Then I'll check that out.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was brilliant or anything, but I liked it a hell of a lot more than I would most modern horror films.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people did. That's why it got the trilogy. So back to Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
That's
all right. It's a Halloween special.
We went off there.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Have you seen it on the big screen before?
Again, I don't believe I have. It's another one where I'm racking my brain thinking you must have, but I don't think I have.
No,
I
I don't think I have, and I'll remember. I'm really looking forward to it. It's the law in this country. I shouldn't have grown up on this film, but I did.
It's an odd one. I mean, I didn't have your experience, obviously, of pirating it. Which, not to say that isn't something that I did. Like I said, I could have seen it. I just didn't. I saw many films pirated as a child, but it was always something that was around. Like I'd read books or read magazines about horror films, and it would come up. I would see stills of the movie in books and stuff. I was so fascinated with it growing up. It was almost like, in a way, I had seen it. Yeah. And then when I did actually see it, I was like, wow, actually, no. Like, my thoughts of it are nothing like the film, almost. Yeah. Like, I'd invented this whole big grand thing of what it was going to be like. And what it was like was completely different, and yet much better than I had thought.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It was lumped in with a lot of video nasties and that sort of thing later on, but it's not a trashy film. It's not.
I agree. It's not a trashy film. It looks like a trashy film, and it's meant to. Yeah. It's meant to look greasy, grimy, horrible. Like it's meant to look like a place you don't want to be anywhere near.
Yeah, but that's the point.
That's the point. Yeah.
It's not. And the fact that there's not a lot of blood in it at all.
No, almost none.
I think that this is a film that my parents, for example, would never watch.
Yeah.
I think I don't want them to watch it now, but if they'd have watched it, because they're in the 70s now, my mum's late 60s, if they'd have watched it when it came out, I think they'd have loved it. They saw Halloween when it first came out and loved it.
Okay.
But they couldn't, because they didn't live in London.
Yeah, that's right. And, like I say, very limited release.
Yeah. And then when it did get released, I think it definitely got a massive DVD video.
It did.
But I think it did get a brief cinema release.
Maybe it must. I'm sure it did.
But a year after it was banned, Channel 4 put it on.
Yeah,
good on them.
Yeah.
And then it sort of the mystique of it went away.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I haven't got a problem with the mystique going away of things. Because in a weird kind of way, like I want stuff to be out there. I want people to be able to see things and to look at things critically, and to actually. To be truthful about what it is, instead of there being like this mythology about it.
Well, this is because a lot of people might watch it and then be disappointed because of that. But I can't imagine any fan of film being disappointed with it.
That's an interesting point. I agree with you on that, because I do think, like you, that it is an extremely well-made film. Maybe some people wouldn't. Maybe.
Yeah.
Like it's certainly of a style, of a type. It's not mainstream filmmaking of any kind. No. It's not Hollywood, right? Even on 70s, fashion. It does have a slight, perhaps, sort of new Hollywood, which was in the time of the 70s mostly, look to it, like, say, documentarian kind of style to it. But yeah, it was still far away its own thing. Like with Night of the Living Dead, made in a place by most of the people from the area. Again, like, this is Texas. It's where Toby Hooper spent a lot of his, I think, grew up, spent his early life in, and it's got that feel again of a homegrown kind of thing, which is gonna be different to the mainstream. It's gonna walk its own kind of path, and some people might not like that, but those people are wrong.
Yeah, and also it's not made for everybody.
Exactly. Well, certainly. I mean, just subject matter alone could put people off, obviously. Yeah. So I don't have any problem with people saying I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
I do understand that.
Yeah.
But if you like horror movies, and if you haven't seen it, you've got to go and see it. You do.
The budget. I'll do the facts now.
All right.
The budget 80 to 140,000.
Yes.
And it made 30.9 million.
Right. Yeah.
And considering it wasn't shown in a lot of places.
Yeah, indeed.
That's pretty cool. And IMDb 7.4 out of 10.
Yeah. It's high.
I'd give it higher, but that's for a film that a lot of people would actually hate. That's a high. Do you know what I mean?
That's a high score by anyone's standards to be, on average, absolutely.
And 89% on the Rotten Tomatoes or Tomatoes, which I don't like. So, but I would agree with that rating. That's the first of the banned movies, because Night of the Living Dead was never banned, was it?
I don't think
I
it was.
think so. No, it was controversial.
Yeah. It was a X rating at the time, and I've never heard of it being banned.
No. So the big one next, The Exorcist, which was actually made the year before, 50th anniversary.
This is its 50th anniversary. So it's a part of being shown as a part of Warner Brothers' 100th anniversary, along with 50th anniversary of the movie. So the director's cut version, so extended.
Yeah, more value for money.
More value for money. Yeah.
Let's get on that trailer.
Yeah.
Something beyond comprehension is happening to a little girl on this street. In this house, a man has been sent for as a last resort to try and save her.
The Exorcist.
Yes, The Exorcist.
This is one I have not seen in the cinema.
Really?
I remember when it got unbanned in 1999. It got a pretty big release.
It did.
Never got round to seeing it. I wasn't living in the same town as the cinema at the time.
Right.
But me and a friend rented it, and we watched it in my parents' front room with all the curtains drawn, ready to scare ourselves.
Brilliant. I did see it at the cinema when it came out. I like you, did not live in a town where it was showing. I got on a bus.
All right, you made the effort.
I made the effort, but sadly, I did one of those awful things that I think since I don't think I've ever done. Was I was late. I was late for the film, and I wasn't even just a little bit late. I was probably about 10 minutes late, and walked in just as the opening bit of the film, which is in Iraq, the opening bit, it was just finishing. So when I first saw it, I thought that's how it started. I didn't realise I was that late. I thought it started with just a little bit in Iraq.
I suppose
but there's a whole like 10 minutes or so, 10, 15.
And I suppose that's a bit that you probably wouldn't have realised until you watched it again how much you'd missed. Like you say.
Absolutely, no.
And because it's quite that beginning bit is kind of the bit of the film I never really think about.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's classic. Okay, so William Friedkin, the director of The Exorcist, one of the fantastic actors who very recently, recording this, died.
Directors, you said actor.
Oh, sorry, yes, director. Sorry, yes, William Friedkin, the director. I don't know, maybe he did some acting. I don't think so, though. But yeah, fantastic director. Very good at making movies where you're in many locations, right? He'll take you to many different places and shoot them in different styles to make you feel quite, in a way, almost disorientated about what kind of movie you're watching sometimes, which I quite like about his way. So the Iraq bit, there's a lot, again, talking about documentary and style filmmaking, there's a lot of bits there where I go, wow, this is really like real life kind of things with the archaeology and all that, those bits, and then cutting it to scenes of in rooms where clocks are stopping, and it's very cinematic. Not at all in a documentary style. So you're getting this kind of sort of juxtaposition between two worlds almost, and then from there, cutting from the blazing sun of Iraq to then Georgetown, Washington DC, in, I'm guessing, the fall. Autumn, as we call it over here, where it's just kind of a bit grey and leaves are falling and shit, and it's like, oh, okay, we're in a completely different world now. Yeah, it's crazy that. So that's opening. That's before we even get to any of the real good stuff. Yeah. But you just know already that you're in for something quite epic.
Yeah. Yeah. This epic's the word, because a lot of big horror films, most I can think of actually, was small budget.
Absolutely.
Horror wasn't this; it was sort of the hidden thing that the nerds liked. And it also, a lot of horror films were quick and make a buck.
Absolutely,
but they spent a lot of money on this movie. It was a big movie.
It was a big movie. It took a long time to make. Yeah, I think maybe over a year or close to a year, something like that, to actually shoot the thing.
Yeah.
So this is not some small time movie.
Yeah. But it's kind of seen as the perfect horror movie or perfect film to watch on Halloween.
Really?
This comes up with, when I ask people's favourite films, this often comes up.
Yeah,
it's the one that... Yeah. It's like the horror equivalent of Shawshank Redemption when people say your favourite film. I know that's the wrong example to use. I know you don't like Shawshank Redemption very much. Yeah. But would you say it's the perfect film to watch at Halloween?
No. I don't think there's a perfect film to watch at any time. But do I think it is certainly a film people should watch at Halloween? Yes.
The closest to perfect.
Yeah, okay. If you like. I knew that. Yeah. You're not going to like that.
The perfect film to watch at Halloween is Ernest Scared
Stupid.
Or that Hokey Pokey one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But it is critically acclaimed, high budget.
Oscar winner,
yes. Which just doesn't go with horror, especially at the time.
No.
Oh, really? Now you don't.
I
suppose they're spending a bit more money on horror.
But think of another horror movie, really, that's so critically acclaimed. There isn't one.
No, I can't think of
not to heights of this one.
Yeah,
they just.
Chainsaw Massacre got good reviews, but nothing like this.
Yeah, but I mean,
also got some bad ones.
But I mean, not just seen critically acclaimed in the sense of what the critics are writing, but also what's come from that. So, like I say, the awards, and the sort of honours that come with that.
Yeah, and also there's the whole "it was banned" thing, and then the stories about like the film being cursed.
Sure, people dying at different times. Again, it's one of them things like if you know about Superman curse and all that, they're all a bit kind of silly, really, or Poltergeist curse. They're kind of things happen. Sadly, people die. It's not like everyone on set's dropping dead. That wasn't what was happening.
Yes, you're a non-believer.
I don't see that there's any real reason to believe that there's a curse on the movie. No.
So you should watch. There's a series called Cursed Movies.
Yes, I've seen it.
And it's featured on it, and you'll come up with the same answer.
Yeah,
because it doesn't really tell you.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I remember again. Commode did a documentary. Mark Commode did the Exorcist documentary. Back
he
when
loves it.
He does. It's his favourite film of all time, and they talked about that in the documentary, and it's just you can it's one of those
you can read into it
all you want. I mean, there was some interesting things in that, like there was a fire as well. It wasn't just people dying, but the deaths are all kind of all over the place and not happening whilst the film was made either. Some of them are just after or whatever, and Max von Sydow, who plays the Exorcist, was very not impressed. He was like, "Nah, it's a load of nonsense." So if he thinks it was nonsense,
but when he hit his 80 in the 80s, he died. So did he die in his 80s? That's what I'm saying.
Oh, well, in real life, because he did die not too long ago.
Yeah, so he must have been in his 80s.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's a curse then.
Okay. Ellen Bernstein is still alive, and Linda Blair is still alive, but Bernstein's going to be in the new one.
Yeah, The Believer.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So, but that's it. If you are going to see The Believer, I don't know if you guys are showing it, but you can't see it without seeing this one. That's the law.
Yes, I mean, this is certainly a film all of them that we've talked about, of course, all three of them, you should definitely go to the cinema and see.
Yeah.
But if you are going to choose just one and you're really into cinema, you're really into filmmaking, I'm guessing this is the one if you're going to pick between the three.
Yeah.
Because just as a film, horror otherwise, it's great. And I think I know that there are a lot of people over the years that I've known who have seen it at different times, at different ages, different age groups, have got along at some point to see it and have been impressed.
Yeah. It is one as well that if you're just a fan of films, you don't have to be a horror fan.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. There's lots of people who I know don't like horror films, ended up seeing it because they've heard how important it was in cinema and whatever, and have watched it and enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So.
Do you know why it was banned?
No.
The reason it's the religious element.
All right.
Which is a strange one. I mean, obviously people can read the film differently.
We're talking about being banned here in England. Yeah, sure.
But it wasn't banned until video in '86.
Yeah.
So,
right.
But I see it as, I'm not a really religious person, as you all know. But surely it's good overcoming evil. So there's a pro-religious.
I really like the story behind talking about that element of the film, which is the crucial element to the film. The writer, William Peter Blatty, who also wrote the novel, deeply religious man, Catholic, which is the religion in question really with this film. But ultimately, it's not really about Catholicism and the devil, because it's not the devil as well that is that is the antagonist in the film. It's another demon, but it's not really about like Catholicism. It's just about good and evil. So you could be of any faith or non-faith and find something in it. William Friedkin, the director, was not a believer, and it's really interesting to see them two working together because Peter Blatty, the writer, worked very closely on the film whilst the film was being made with Friedkin, and so they had a lot of communication, a lot of talks about how they want the film to look, and it's really interesting looking at how the film did come out, and certain elements to it that one was more happy with than the other, right? So I think that's really interesting if people are into the process of filmmaking. There's some talks that they did whilst they were both still alive about it. So you can look those up. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, what I find interesting is it's a great film either way, but it's almost like they use the media frenzy to help promote the movie.
Well, of course. I would have thought so. Yeah,
and it's almost like it went a little bit too far, and they ended up. But I think it was actually banned with the video nasties thing. That was the thing, and it was lumped in, much like Evil Dead, which is a great film, lumped in with these other films that were made purely to shock, whereas this wasn't made purely to shock. Yeah, sure. I don't know if it was part of the... I think it gets mentioned along with the nasties, but it wasn't one of the video nasties that was on the list, the famous list. No, but it was banned along with them.
Yeah, so, sure, for these reasons. And I suppose because of... the time we're talking here in the 80s, there was a lot of panic about loss of morals in the country, and what was her name, Mary Whitehouse, all that nonsense that she was involved with, and this is we do tend to forget this is still a Christian nation. As soft as that may be with the CV,
but I think a lot of Christians. I mean, I don't want to speak on their behalf.
No.
But I could see Christians liking this film.
Yes,
because of
this is what element I was trying to get to with the between the writer and the director, is that they both looked upon it as a film that religious people should look at as a positive thing.
Yeah,
but this is a positive. This is about good beating evil. Right? Yeah. And you can, like I say, you can take that however you like, whether from someone that is religious or not.
Yeah. So, it's like the old you've got to see the film through to see that message. It's like people who think It's a Wonderful Life's depressing, isn't it? Because they've watched 10 minutes.
Sure,
but
I mean, It's a Wonderful Life is it's a bit much for me, but I'll take The Exorcist over that any day.
You'd take The Exorcist over a lot of films.
I would. It's true. It's not my favourite film by a long way, but I do very much appreciate it. I love it. And we were talking the other day about which I prefer, because it does come up as like favourite horror, just thinking horror film, and it is generally between this and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. When I think of the big ones, there's another one, 1981's Possession, which is, in a lot of ways, is probably my favourite horror film of all time. It's also one of my favourite films of all time.
That's one I've never seen. Is that Sam Neill?
Yeah, Sam Neill. Yeah.
And it's a good director. Good director as well, isn't it?
I forget the man's name. He was I think Polish filmmaker, so I don't want to butcher it, the name. But yeah, he was great. I've seen a couple of other his films. Yeah.
This is one that always comes up, not in as high regards as this, but horror films you should watch.
Yeah,
and it's quite hard to get hold of now. As in, there's not a current physical release.
Right, Second Sight released a DVD and a Blu-ray a few
while
years
ago.
Yeah,
it's quite hard to get hold of now.
Right.
I could just rent it, I suppose. Yeah. I'm tight. I like to keep things.
Yeah.
But those are the perfect. And you're showing these on separate nights. I'm going to hope you do all four. But the perfect two sort of great horror films, and they're so different. It's like both ends of the scale.
Agreed.
And that's why I always ask sort of guests and stuff, what's your favourite? But I hate that myself. I don't have a favourite of anything.
Yeah,
really.
exactly. Yeah.
So I think the 2 days I'm going to talk about Christine with Dan in a bit, which is another that's another sort of more mainstream Hollywood horror.
Yeah.
The four films you're showing, I think, reflect so many different sides of this genre. Apart from putting an out-and-out horror, say comedy on, I think you've covered it all.
I think so.
Zombies are a big one. Then you've got the Chainsaw Massacre, which I suppose, how would you class that? Like home invasion in a way?
It's a weird one. It's interesting, isn't it? I suppose it's more about the fear of the fear of just the outsider, like the person living out in the middle of nowhere, sort of thing. And And
then you've got Exorcist with supernatural.
Yeah, with supernatural and religious overtones or undertones, however you want.
Story in a way as well.
Like you say, so supernatural. Demology, all that kind of thing. Fight between good and evil.
But all these films have got iconic imagery that you say The Exorcist or Chainsaw, an image will come into the head of people who haven't even seen the movies.
Yeah. Certainly. I mean, they've mentioned before, parodied a lot. I suppose all of them. I would say.
Can I mention Repossessed, the Exorcist parody?
Yeah.
Which I loved as a kid, and I watched that before the Exorcist.
Yeah, me too.
Linda Blair's in it. It could be seen as a sequel. Leslie Nielsen, and you've got the other guy from Airplanes in it, isn't he? There's. Is it? He plays Father Mayo.
Yeah, Father Mayo. That's it. Yes.
That's quite hard one to get hold of.
Jesse Ventura's in it.
Jesse Ventura is in it. Yes.
Mean Gene.
Wrestling legends. But that's a silly spoof, and as how these films often it helps lighten them, I suppose, because they're dark. They'll scare people. But if you've watched a spoof of it first, you can go into it easier.
I agree. Kind of could potentially ruin it.
Ruin it, yeah.
But,
with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is spoofed a lot, there's a 1986 comedy, which we done a podcast for on ACM's Vault Cult called Summer School, and two of the kids in that are obsessed with the movie.
Yeah.
And I found out a lot about this movie through that.
Right.
I'm kind of wrong, though, because they see it as just like gore heavy. By gore, but that's not what the film is.
Yeah.
But I think that might be one of the reasons that I actually dared watch it when I was so young, because I'd seen that film a lot and liked it. And they talk about, like, one of the characters is even called Chainsaw.
That's right.
So you wasn't such a big fan of that.
Not a massive fan of the film. I do like the bit where they have the special effects and stuff. That bit's really with the gore element, which is like doesn't really fit with the rest of the film at all. But it's good. It's a good bit.
Yeah. But these movies are a big part of pop culture.
Completely. Yes.
And I'm glad we have them. They've helped make Halloween, the costumes and stuff. People dress up as probably. Apart from Christine, I mean, I would love to go as Halloween dressed up as a car.
That'd be good.
But
just like have like a number plate or something. You can wear a number plate.
And but that's we'll talk about that in a bit with Dan.
Yeah.
But Exorcist, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
There's loads, obviously, but we're very short for time. Not particularly, other than just please come along and see it, and you will certainly get something out of it, even if you're not a horror fan.
Yeah.
So yes.
I'm a bit worried people are going to be protesting outside, like the olden days. No, not really, but they did, didn't they?
They did, yes.
Protest outside.
That would probably that'd be more for the religious element, I suppose. I think a lot of people were very wary that it was promoting Satanism or something.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about The Exorcist,
I don't think people were protesting Chainsaw Massacre. They might have done.
Both of those, Night of the Living Dead and Chainsaw Massacre, those are really small. As far as cinemas that they would have been playing at, and mostly drive-ins, I suppose, where everything gets shown. So not generally places where people would come and protest, which is odd because you'd think, well, why not? If you've got a problem with something, why not with everything?
I shouldn't say this while I'm recording, but a bit of promotion for the cinema.
Yeah.
If I rock up outside with some mates with some signs with like down with this sort of thing, and then we'll get in the papers.
Yeah, well, it's not a bad idea. I mean, any publicity is good publicity, right? So
but then they'll be like, bloke who does the podcast, protest.
It's an inside job, isn't it?
Let's not do that. And I'm not recommending anyone do that because I don't like trouble, man. But so The Exorcist is showing on the Saturday the 28th and Halloween night.
It is. It's showing on Saturday, yes. So the 28th, and if you are up for a film on the actual Halloween night, showing it on Tuesday, 31st.
And this is if you don't just take our word for it, right? It was made on a 12 million budget, and made 428 million. Yeah, that's insane.
That's a big one.
And it's got 8.1 out of 10 on the IMDb's. I ain't looked on the other ones. I haven't even mentioned Letterboxd for the reviews.
8.1 is crazy. I mean, that's an average score, by the way, right? That's not just a few people. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people. I'm sure it's got many reviews. So
it's interesting looking at the reviews of something when it first comes out. And the fans and the filmmakers have gone to see it.
Yeah, and they all give it big old thumbs
up. I can remember Godzilla had something like 9.6.
Which
the more recent one. Which I like that. Don't get me wrong, it's a lot better than the 90s one.
We're talking about the Kong one, was it?
Yeah, the first one out of those, probably about.
The first, 2014, I think that was something like that. Yeah.
I mean, that's
I mean, it's a good film, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember quite enjoying it, thinking, this is, like I say, much better than the horrible...
but 9.6.
Matthew... Who was it? No, not Matthew.
There was Matthew Broderick.
Oh, God, that guy.
We've got to stop mentioning him. He's probably sitting at home and listening to this. I mentioned again. It has to be a coffee, Sarah. Anyway...
Matt Rogan. Sorry, no. Is that Rogan?
Stop it.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, God. Thank you very much for joining us on this very tasteful Halloween horror special.
Yes.
We recorded this quite early, so I'm not going to ask you what else is coming up, because I don't know, and you probably don't know. You don't know, do you?
Well, I know what's coming up next week.
Yeah,
but in October, no.
next week this show won't out. So, but keep listening to this podcast, but more importantly, if there is anything more important, checking out the website.
Always.
Yeah.
Because that's where you'll get all the information.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, James. Now I'm going to talk to Dan, who about Christine, and he might know more of what's coming up later.
Oh, yeah, he's the man to talk to.
So here's the trailer for Christine, and thank you very much, James.
Good night.
She is seductive. She is passionate. She is possessive. She is pure evil. She is Christine, a 1958 Plymouth Fury, possessed by hell. Her previous owner is not alive to warn her present one. Once she lures you behind the wheel, you will be hers, body and soul. There is no place you can hide, no place you can run, and nothing you can do can stop her. Because how do you kill something that can't possibly be alive?
Christine. Body by Plymouth. Soul by Satan.
Dan, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, as always.
Thank you. You're looking forward to Halloween?
Very much. Yeah, autumn is my favourite season. Halloween is a great time. So, yeah, very much looking forward to that.
Excellent. Last year, I think we spoke about The Lost Boys and... what was the other one? There was two classic horror films you showed.
Do you know, I can't remember.
No,
I remember The Lost Boys very well.
No, it wasn't a really horror. It was Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Rocky Horror Picture Show. That's right.
That was it. And I spent Halloween here, and it looks like I'm doing the same this year. And spoke to James about Night of the Living Dead, The Exorcist, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And this is probably the most commercial, I'd say, out of the three you're showing, but probably the least successful, if that makes sense.
I think, yeah.
1983, so the 40th anniversary, Christine. John Carpenter directed, based on a Stephen King novel. What made you feel you want to show this film for Halloween?
I think it... I mean, obviously the anniversary, the 40th anniversary. And I think it sat well with the other three. It offset the other three quite well. You know, it sat well with the other three. So Night of the Living Dead, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and The Exorcist. I think Christine offsets those very well. I mean, we could have gone with anything else, but it felt right. Anniversary. So, and you know, who doesn't love a film about a Plymouth Fury?
Yeah. It's one of those iconic films as well. It's been spoofed a lot. The imagery's there, like with the other two, and just the fact that I think it's always good when you're showing a bunch of horror films to put a Stephen King one on.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, there was there were others that we could have gone with, but you know, with Christine, I think. There's a lightness to Christine. There's more of a, you know, if we went for The Shining, for example, which is my favourite of all of Stephen King adaptations. I think it would just be another heavy Halloween type film that we've got on. So you know, the lightness of a film like Christine. That's not to do it, and I'm not paying it an injustice by saying that there's a lightness there. But there's, you know, it's not a gore fest.
No.
So, you know, it just sits well. Yeah.
Can you remember first seeing the film? Was it at the cinema?
It wasn't at the cinema. It would have been on TV probably, but I don't remember the first time.
No.
I ever saw it. I've seen it a number of times, but recalling the first one is you know, impossible. But it's you know, I think it's a film that probably most people did discover on VHS, which is why it's our Be Kind Rewind film for October, purely because it didn't do very well. You know, like almost all of John Carpenter's films didn't really do very well.
Yeah, I mean,
other than the ones that you would,
the big ones.
Yeah, Halloween.
But they've kind of done modestly. I mean, it was 9.7 million. It made 21 million, did it, or 2.1 million? I'm trying to look at my notes. I think it made 21 million. It just doubled its.
Yeah.
So it's.
I think
kind of a hit, but not a big hit.
Yeah, I think it's anytime you get a film that costs 10 million. That's once you hit 10 million, you're kind of talking about hidden numbers.
Yeah.
That make it 15 million or 16 million. So it's the return on that is probably negligible.
Yeah, I mean, I did read that the weekend it came out in America, it made number 3 in the box office, being John Carpenter and Stephen King, this should have been straight to number one in the box office. It's a strange one, and it's remembered really fondly. It has become a cult classic.
It has, yeah. I think over time, it's just one of those. It's one of those films that actually naturally will build a following. The longer it's out, and the more it's viewed in the home, rather than in a cinema.
Yeah,
I think.
I think the concept of it as well, because it sounds ridiculous, the killer car.
Yeah.
But it is that kind of movie that once you get into it, it's like the ridiculousness goes away.
Yeah.
And it is creepy, and once you get the headset, it becomes a scary film. I remember I watched it when I was very young. My dad recorded it. My dad's not the biggest horror fan, but at a very young age, when I wanted to watch all the Freddy Kruegers and that sort of thing, he was like, "No, you can't watch that." But here's Halloween, and he liked that one, and he liked Chris. Maybe it was a John Carpenter thing. I was never allowed to watch Carrie because that scared my mum. They saw that stuff, but this was one of the two that he sort of thought was fine for me, and it might be because it was not realistic. Whereas Halloween is, but then Halloween isn't very violent. And I remember just thinking at a very young age that it was silly, but then by the end it got me.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with it. It's not a, it's not it's not a horror film. It's more of a coming of age story than it is a horror film, I think, and it's surrounded by the silliness of this monster car.
Yeah, it's the development of the Keith Gordon character, isn't it? How he changes.
Yeah.
And it has that high, set in high school.
Yeah.
And it's almost got a 1950s feel, but it isn't set in the 50s, is it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think the music has a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
And I suppose as well there was a lot in the 1980s that was influenced by the 1950s.
Yeah, it's much like nowadays. Lots is influenced by the 80s.
Yeah.
And it has got this Stephen King, so you've got that Stand By Me.
That's right.
It kind of coming of age thing around it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really good cast. I mentioned Keith Gordon, who is now a director, isn't he? He's done some fairly big films.
He has. Yeah, he's done a lot of TV as well.
Yeah.
A good director in his own right now. Workman-like director, but a good director.
Yeah. I know him from the 80s movie Legend of Billie Jean, which I know you've seen. But then you've also got young Kelly Preston's in it.
Yes, she is.
And if you're any, I know this is a serious film podcast, but I'm sure everybody's watched Baywatch, because Alexandra Paul, who I know from Dragnet.
Dragnet.
She's in it, and several other fairly big names.
I think Alexandra Paul was in American Flyers as well. I think it was American Flyers.
She was in quite a bit before she'd done Baywatch, wasn't she?
Yeah.
I think they wanted to bring someone in who could act.
Yeah.
Great.
Alexandra Paul is great. Yeah.
But I mean, there was no big name, and it was pushed on John Carpenter and Stephen King. And I always see this as a kind of, it's more of a Stephen King film than a John Carpenter film, I feel. And he'd just come off the back of, I think, 2 flops.
He had.
He'd done Escape from New York and The Thing.
Yeah. Now
considered out-and-out classics, but both didn't do very well at all.
Yeah.
Especially The Thing. And I think he just wanted a moneymaker in a way.
Yeah. Well, it was after The Thing had opened and it had underperformed at the box office, and he was working on an adaptation of Firestarter, another Stephen King.
Yeah.
And due to the poor performance of the box office of The Thing, Universal got cold feet on Firestarter, and they pulled the plug at that point anyway, and he needed a job.
Yeah.
So I think at that point it was when the manuscript came across the desk of him and his producer, Bill Phillips, I think. and they got a jump on the film very quickly.
Yeah.
So I think the film came out when the paperback of Christine was still topping the paperback charts. So it was a good, it was good timing, I think.
Yeah. There's interesting about Firestarter because that was made not long after with Drew Barrymore, wasn't it?
Drew Barrymore.
And Christine is I don't say it, but definitely the better film,
absolutely.
and more well remembered.
Yeah.
And even Firestarter was remade a couple of years ago, and they didn't really get it any better.
No.
But when you think, or when I think Stephen King adaptations, Christine's up there.
Yeah.
There's The Shining, Carrie, and obviously Shawshank Redemption and Green Mile, but I'm thinking more horrors. This would be in the top 5 anybody's cinema Stephen King horror films, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
without a doubt. I think it has its own voice, I think. Which is
yeah. And for something that it sounds really silly, but it's a unique film. And just as I mentioned earlier, the fact that it works, it is like the car. It's not like a Knight Rider or something like that. It feels there's that presence, and it feels you can get it,
Yeah.
Which I find fascinating because in different hands, I say this doesn't really feel like a John Carpenter film, but in different hands, this could have gone so badly.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's understanding what the core of a story is, really, isn't it? And that's when we come back to it's so much of it is a coming of age story. So it's full. It's a story that's full of very selfish people, other than his best friend and his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Who are. We don't want to spoil anything for anybody who hasn't seen it, but they are the two righteous people in the story, for want of a better word, and everybody else is not. Yeah. They're not at all. Yeah. They're all out for themselves. No, I mean, obviously, somebody like who actually I felt was criminally underused in the film, and it's Harry Dean Stanton.
Of course, yeah.
And he was great. I think once he turns up, it elevates everything. You're like, it's Harry Dean Stanton, because any scene he's in, he doesn't. The brilliant thing about Harry Dean Stanton is he doesn't command your attention once he's on screen. He doesn't get everybody else out of the frame, figuratively, and make the scene about him. He just elevates everything about that scene.
Yeah.
It's great. So once he comes in, it's great. He's hardly, he's not in it a lot.
No.
But he lifts those scenes, and ultimately, he doesn't really. He's a detective who doesn't really solve anything by the end of it. It's just great that he's in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's kind of the biggest name in it.
Yeah.
But he's not. He's never been the type of actor whose name would go above a title. He's a character actor, isn't he?
Yeah, very, very much. I mean, almost all of them. Almost everybody in there was a character actor. You got Robert Blossom, who played the guy who sold the car.
Oh right. Yeah.
Who people would know from probably Home Alone, I think, more than anything else. He was the old man in Home Alone.
Okay, yeah.
The snow shoveler in Home Alone.
Yeah.
He was also in Close Encounters, Escape from Alcatraz. He was also in an episode of The Equalizer with Edward Woodward and Airwolf and Moonlighting and a number of other things. And a brilliant film called Deranged from 1974 that was based on the life of Ed Gein.
This is a film I know but haven't seen.
Okay.
It's one of those on my lists.
Oh man, you've got to see that one.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Yeah. So yeah, all character actors. Robert Prosky, who played, I forget the name of the the character who he played now, but he owns the wrecking yard, the car wrecking yard in the.
Yeah.
Another character actor. He was in Last Action Hero, who we showed.
Yeah.
He played the projectionist in Last Action
Oh,
Hero.
of course, yeah. So he played the James of Last Action Heroes.
Yeah. So again, another character actor.
Yeah.
He was in Thief as well, and had a long-standing role in Hill Street Blues. Which
I
remembers Hill
remember
Street
that.
Blues?
Channel 4 in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those movies that there's no big name, but you recognise a lot of the faces.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's 80s horror there's a lot going on, and a lot of it was straight to video rubbish. But then you got the odd gem, and quite a few gems, not the odd gem, but this is definitely one of them. And 40 years is amazing. It's only a year younger than me, so really I've grown up watching this movie. But this is the first opportunity I've had to see it on the big screen, and I like going to the old films, and that, but I can't remember this happening at 30th, 20th anniversary. I can't remember.
I think it had a 35th anniversary release. Anything else, I don't know.
Yeah, it's never. But you didn't? Did you have that here? I don't. No, because I didn't. Haven't seen it pop up. There was a lot of films. You mentioned The Shining. Don't get me wrong. I'd watch that on the big screen any day of the week. But I've seen it twice at least in my life.
Right.
And other Stephen King ones like Carrie, you see quite a bit.
Yeah.
But this one, not so much. So it's a good time. 40 years is a long time, and to me, a film made in the 80s doesn't feel that old. That's the equivalent of when I was growing up, a film made in the 40s.
Yeah.
It's so strange.
Yeah, it's a very strange thing, actually. No, I think it's sensibilities have changed since the 80s as well, but the way things are presented hasn't changed a great deal. Still have colour film. Everything's done on colour film.
Yeah.
The difference in technology is not as, although we may walk around with iPhones and whatnot, the difference in technology has not changed the same between the 80s and now as it had between the 40s and the 80s. It's huge. We have the Second World War to thank or not for that.
Yeah.
War always brings with it a huge amount of technological advances, not always for the greater good.
Yeah.
But it's.
Yeah.
You're right. It's
and I suppose that now we've got from the 80s to now we've got video and we've got streaming, so you can re-watch things, so they're more recent in the mind.
Yeah.
Whereas an older film that you'd only see possibly if it was on in the cinema, or if it was on TV, which had been every few years maybe. So it's not as it's not as in your head, so to speak,
That's
and you
right.
forget about things.
Yeah.
And I suppose, like, say a film like a classic from 1985, like say The Goonies, so putting 85 out there, will seem fresher and newer than a forgotten film from that era.
Yeah.
It's how we perceive things.
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
But Christine is. This is. I'll be honest. I've seen all the films you're showing, and I still like it a lot. But it's my least favourite out of the four. But it's the one I'm most looking forward to seeing.
Okay.
Because the others I have watched quite regularly.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen any of them on the big screen. But with the Exorcist and Chainsaw Massacre, I can remember them having that being unbanned.
Yeah.
And being everywhere.
Yeah.
So we were all watching them more when they came on video for me. Mm-hmm. Night of the Living Dead is one that I do watch every few years. I've never seen it on the big screen. But this one, it's just got that. It's almost like it's the oddball out of the three.
Yeah.
It's I like the underdog and smaller films, and even though it should have been the bigger film, it didn't. It's kind of like one of the reasons I love Howard the Duck. I mentioned that because we've done a podcast and you've shown it. Was that it was made to be this massive hit, and it wasn't. But there's so much about it I love that I kind of will always support that film, and I'll always be banging on to people about that. And
we'll have to bring it back then.
I got a lot of my mates to that film, and all of them said they enjoyed it. Apart from I saw one letterboxd review after with I won't say who said they'd seen it before and enjoyed it and gave it a 1 star. But that might have been because she had no argument with me. I don't know. But, no, but it was. But that is something, people give that film a 1 star and still love it. And there's maybe with Christine it was the people didn't like to admit it was good, or they liked it because of it's a killer car, and because of just maybe it was at the time where there was too many Stephen King films coming out.
Yeah,
because there was a lot after Carrie, wasn't there? Or who I haven't looked into what was released at the same time. I said it got number 3 in the box office. Don't know what was at 1 and 2. 1983. That could have been massive films, couldn't it? So
it could.
You never know.
We should have looked that up beforehand.
Yeah,
never mind.
It would have been in front of me, and I just didn't take it in. But
Maybe it's because it was so unimportant.
Yeah, exactly. Because it wasn't Christine.
Yeah.
So another thing I will add, there's one thing which stuck out to me when I rewatched it probably 5 or 6 years ago, because it got a Blu-ray release, which is quite rare now. It's one of those special editions that came out.
Yeah.
Some of the language in it, the swears, so to speak, a certain word which would have made it an 18 then, you never heard in a film, which seems kind of strange for something they were kind of pushing to be a big hit. But then it also made the teenagers in it feel more real. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it was severe.
Yeah.
It was severe right from the outset.
Yeah.
It was severe. But, let's quickly do... So 1983 then, I can't remember. Top film 1983 was Return of the Jedi.
Okay, yeah.
Tootsie was number 2. Flashdance was number 3. Trading Places number 4. War Games number 5.
War Games was that high. That's amazing.
And then, but if we go down overall, so we're looking at overall numbers in 1983.
Where's Christine on there then?
So Christine...
you're going through, we're getting lower.
Yeah, we are...
Let's see if I can pick any classics up from there that I can't... Is that the... 10 to Midnight? That was Charles Bronson, wasn't it? So you're going through, you can't even find it, can you?
66.
66.
So it did...
Which?
21 million.
21 million, yeah.
66.
What's number 60, just to give it a reference?
Number 60 is The Sword in the Stone.
That's another one what famously bombed, didn't it?
Yeah. It cost 12 million to make and it took 12 million.
Wow.
So it lost a huge amount of money. Again, you've got to look at the money that a film distributor will take from a $12 million budget. If it makes 12 million, they've lost money because they only take 40 to 60% of that film revenue. So an exhibitor gets the rest, and governments get more. So a film has to make a considerable amount of money, more than its budget, in order to make money. That's a production budget is what doesn't factor in marketing costs.
No.
So now you're talking. That's why films have to make so much money now.
Yeah. Because
they not only do the films cost so much money, but they cost an equal amount of money to market, because they spend an equal amount of money on marketing. So they need to make 3, 4, 5, 6 times their budget in order to earn any money. And that's why you have the Walt Disney Company in such dire financial straits now, because they've had 11, I think, flops in a row.
Really?
Which has cost them, they now have a $50 billion deficit.
Yeah.
So they're in huge trouble. And other studios, it's exactly the same thing. They don't have the same outlays as the Walt Disney Company. They don't have parks and all of that, but they spend so much money on these films.
Yeah.
That in order for them to make any money, they need ticket prices to be as high as every exhibitor can possibly make them in order for them to make any money back on them or get their budget back.
Yeah.
So
and it feels like there's more movies coming out at the moment in recent years. Whereas, you know, sometimes in the past, I imagine a film would have had the summer to make the money. Now, if a film comes out and it doesn't do well in its first week, it's gone.
That's right.
Which I have seen with some which should have been big films. The one I can think of, and I'm sure it will make money in the long run, but Indiana Jones wasn't on for half as long as I thought it would be.
I mean, that's another example of. I mean, there was a lot of hubris from the Walt Disney Company in terms of Indiana Jones. You know, that they assumed that because they put Indiana Jones on the posters that everybody would come and watch the film, and nobody came.
Yeah.
You know, it was a massive. Again, they've probably lost anywhere up to $300 million on that film alone.
And with that one as well, they've got to think it's been a while since the last one, and I've enjoyed all of them, I will say that, but the last one was badly received by the fans. So it's another 10 years, I think, if not longer, maybe 15 years. 15 years. And there's a different director, which the people will know, and we all know that he's about 80. So there's a lot of reasons where a lot of people wouldn't want to see it.
Yeah.
You're right, you can't just put the name on it. And I think it'll be the same when they do another Star Wars movie.
Yeah. I mean, the whole... You know, with Indiana Jones, you know, the Crystal Skull, Kingdom of Crystal Skull was, overall it wasn't well received, but it did about 700-800 million at the box office. Yeah. So you're coming off a film that wasn't well received, but made almost $1 billion at the box office and releasing a film. You know that you're you know, presenting it with as much ego as you possibly can, which firstly does put a lot of people off. But you've had such a huge gap in between a film that wasn't well received and then a film that you want people to watch. It's just it was so ill conceived. I think everything that, again, and we see this because of the amount of money that the Walt Disney Company is losing, we see that everything that Lucasfilm is putting out is losing. It's not only losing money, but it's losing the subscribers that they assumed they would get because they bought Lucasfilm. You know, people.
I think with something like that, in 15 years, the fans have almost their dislike for it's probably grown because they've talked to each other and they've discussed it. But in the minds of the people who make it, this made nearly $1 billion. They're ignoring. There's been so many films. The example I use is, do you remember? I'm a massive fan of Steve Martin, right? One of my favourite comedians. When he made the remake of the Pink Panther, the first film, because he was in it, and it, out of interest, made lots of money. Lots of money, but people on the whole didn't really like it. Youngsters who hadn't seen the old ones liked it, and probably people like me who's a Steve Martin fan liked it. They churned out a second one within a couple of years, and it bombed majorly. They'd looked at the receipts but hadn't read the feedback. And that can be a massive problem, I feel.
Definitely. There's an assumption, you know, and you can't. Money isn't always the key, you know, because you can fool somebody once, you know, but second time around, you're pushing it. Pushing it.
Look at when someone pays for a cinema ticket to make sequels. Maybe look at who. Things are different now, but back then, how many people bought the DVD? Because this would be people who'd seen it and want to rewatch it and see it again. But anyway, get back to Christine.
We've got off track.
I like the little tangents there. No, there was never a sequel to Christine, to my knowledge, and I don't think it's been remade. which is
No.
quite rare for a Stephen King.
But there is apparently a remake in the works.
Ah.
I mean, there's a remake of everything in the works. Whether or not it actually gets to screens, who knows?
But yeah, I was thinking it must be due.
Mm-hmm.
So that's being shown on Saturday the 28th.
Yes,
I believe
and
16th.
Tuesday the 31st.
Yeah, on Halloween. So
On Halloween.
you can do it as a double bill with The Exorcist.
You can. Yeah.
Which-
Christine at 6 and The Exorcist at 8:30.
Perfect. That's my Halloween sorted. And I don't like trick or treaters; they can go somewhere else. So, what else have you got in the pipeline for October?
So October, we've got at the beginning of October. I really want people to come to this. We've got 2 shows, or we've got 1 show in September, and then a number of other shows in October, first week of October, and that's A Little Life, which is a fantastic stage production of A Little Life, which I'm not going to say anything about it at all. James Norton plays the main character. The cast is small. It's an intimate play, and it will grip you from the beginning right through to the end. It's absolutely fantastic. So we're light years away from Christine with that, but it's definitely something that is well worth everybody's time. And I would say as well, the following week we're doing 2 special screenings of Stop Making Sense, which is the Jonathan Demme documentary, concert film, basically, of great Talking Heads.
Yes, you trailered that before Batman.
Yeah.
That looks great as well.
So that again, that's another anniversary, 40 years, or 40 years from the concert.
Okay,
itself. The film I think was released a year later.
Yeah.
So that's coming up the week after that. Also that week we've got a film called Anchorage, which nobody's going to know about, but I would recommend just going and head to our webpage, our website, and search for Anchorage and just read the synopsis for that, because it's brilliant. It's a road movie, modern day road movie about 2 brothers who 2 misfit brothers, basically. Just they're going from one place to another to make a fortune, and the things that happen to them on this journey are it's it's great. I don't want to say anything more.
That's what I've never heard of. Is that a new film?
It's a new film, yeah. It's had a very limited release in the US, and again, limited release here. There's only a handful of cinemas who are doing it. So we're one of probably less than 5 cinemas who are doing it in the country. And I would highly recommend that. I'd recommend also The Old Oak, which is Ken Loach's new film.
Oh yeah.
And in the same week we're doing a film called Dumb Money, which looks absolutely brilliant.
That's what I was talking to. Once we turned off the recorder, talking to James about that.
Okay.
Very sweary trailer.
Very, very sweary trailer. We have 2. We have a red band trailer, which is the sweary one, and a green band, which is the non-sweary one. Hopefully, the non-sweary one was in Batman.
That's a big cast to me. Saturday Night Live, Pete Davidson's in it. Who has been more in the news in recent years for his personal life than his actual ability, but I think he's a funny bloke, and it's good to see him in a film. He pops up occasionally in some good films and Fast and Furious. October's looking good.
October's looking good. Yeah, we're a little lighter on the ground in terms of films in October, because we've got a lot of private hires that we've got in. So but I think we've made a really good month with the program in October. So everybody come to everything.
Yes, that's the way to do it. But being I like generally all genres of music, but music of movies. But horror is up there with my favourites, and I always look for what's on at Halloween. And we've done this episode around those. But when you let me know what films they were, I was very impressed. I do like the classics, and I'm a big fan of seeing older films at the cinema. But there's no time like Halloween to see these movies how they should be seen.
Absolutely, yeah, and it was important, I think, that we didn't do everything that the mainstream cinemas would be doing as well. So obviously they're going to be, every mainstream cinema is going to be doing Christine, because that's part of the package for this Halloween because of the anniversary, and The Exorcist as well because it's 50 years of The Exorcist. But the other ones were ones where we went off the beaten track slightly. So Night of the Living Dead, and certainly Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which you don't see regularly in cinemas at all. And Night of the Living Dead is the second film that we're doing in conjunction with Janus Films, which is a very important distributor of art house films. They were the first distributor of art house films in the US.
Okay.
To get art house films out to a wider audience in America. And we're partnering with them. First is Chunking Express, which we will have had by the time everybody hears this. So it's a good, coming back to the mix. It's a good mix.
Yeah.
To be too proud.
That's good. I've been here a few times in the last few weeks. Done Batman and some other films, and always enjoy it. And everyone's really friendly, which I like.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're not at the other cinemas, because they are, but you remember. I know I do the podcast now, but even before that, you guys remember people, and you always ask what you think of the film on the way out as well, which is really nice. I will quickly mention, so I didn't focus on it too much, but the Lord of the Rings marathon. Everyone got through, yeah.
They did. They all made it. It was a really, really good day, and. I can guarantee we'll be doing more of the same. Yeah. So, not Lord of the Rings again so soon. Yeah. We may do that again later on, but we'll be doing more of those days in the future.
Because I had to work, but I'd have really loved it because I'd done the whole Batman day before.
Yeah.
Imagine that I'd have done 7 films over 2 days. But not to put you on the spot, but what would your ideal movie marathon be if there was a series of films you could watch in a day or over a weekend? Personally,
do all the James Bond films,
all of them. Yeah,
I don't know. That might be a bit too much. I mean, there'd have to be a connection, a strong connection. I think the Back to the Future trilogy would work.
Yeah, that's a good length as well.
Yeah,
6 hours, just under 6 hours.
Yeah, and it's 3 films that basically take place almost immediately after each other as well. So you just, that
would be good. The perfect one for me, and it would take under 2 days, would be all 30 Carry On films.
Oh man!
No, I wouldn't. Do you think anyone's ever done that? That'd be mad, wouldn't it?
I don't know.
You'd probably leave that a different person and possibly get arrested for inappropriate. No, but. There's a lot of films like trilogies, but I was looking at the length of Lord of the Rings. Those 3 films, you could watch in less time all 7, I believe, Police Academy movies. Which one day, probably for charity, I'll do. But I don't know if I could get through the 7th one again.
Which was the Russian one?
The 7th one. That's terrible. Okay. I'm a very big fan of bad comedy, but the 7th one I struggle, and that's got, I believe, Christopher Lee in it, and what's the guy who played Hellboy who was in Beauty and the Beast?
Oh yeah,
Ron Perlman.
Ron Perlman.
He's in it as well,
right.
and it just doesn't work. Made a good 5 years after the others. Well, are we talking about Police Academy films? Sorry, I always get there on that. But yeah, so October looks great. Thanks a lot for joining us, and obviously everyone should check out the website.
Yeah.
Which is updated very regularly.
It is.
Very, very. Some of you are probably listening to the podcast through a link on there anyway, but spread the word. And very good on social media as well. So follow on Instagram and Facebook, yeah?
Indeed.
Brilliant.
Oh, and Threads.
You're on Threads?
Yeah, we're on Threads. So if anybody else is on Threads, you know, you can see exactly the same posts on there that we put everywhere else.
Yeah. That's cool. Okay, thanks a lot for joining us, and we'll be back in probably about a month with another podcast. I have no idea what it'll be on, so we'll see. Check the websites and you can guess. Cheers.
Thanks.
Don't go anywhere. As I said at the beginning of the show, I caught up with Ian Pointer, local artist illustrator, after King Street screened the very first Batman movie, Batman 1966, a few weeks ago. He'd never seen the movie before, so I thought it'd be nice just to get his views on it. Here's a little chat I had with him after that film.
So we've just seen the classic Batman 1966 on the big screen. My first time seeing it on the big screen. It was the first video I ever owned as a child. But Ian, this is your first time seeing it full stop.
Absolutely, I've never seen it before, and I can proudly say that I saw it at the cinema. So the 66 film, I can now say I saw at the cinema, and what a ride. I didn't expect it to be that funny, and it was that witty, and it was just that cartoony feel to it, which is just a great, the way it was put together and everything. It was slightly longer than I imagined it would be, but it's, yeah, it was. I think I'm still trying to process because there's so many colours and different strong characters within it.
Yeah. Have you seen the series?
I've seen a couple of episodes of the series. Yeah. So it's the same actors, right?
Yeah. But Catwoman's different for reasons. The original actress was contracted to something else before they'd done the film, but other than that, it's all the same actors.
Oh, right.
So it's probably a few years since you've seen the series. I'm guessing
it would have been a long time, when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I would actually like to, out of curiosity now, like to see a couple of those episodes.
Yeah. The trouble with the series, it's great, it's very traumatic, so you can't sort of binge it because the episodes are very samey, whereas this film, it's sort of, I think it's an hour 40, and there's a lot happens and a lot going on. But the humour, they say, it's 57 years old, and that's the first time I've seen it for probably 10 years, and I still find it very funny.
It was very funny. I didn't expect it would be so funny. It was, and all that kind of parody of itself, saying everything's got the bat something in front of it. You get the bat cables and all the bat lays, whatever he had, the bat booster or the bat ladder.
And of course the shark repellent bat spray.
Oh yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, it's just that very sort of colourful, sort of crime fighting adventure. Timeless it is. That can be. You can watch that in the future and not think, "Oh, this is really hammy." Now it's definitely one that's going to be on my Blu-ray list.
Yeah, and I mentioned this when we done the Batman special podcast. I think it was the first feature-length movie based on a comic book. I might be wrong. There was a series before that, because obviously there was a Batman series and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
but I think it might have been the first cinematic comic book adaptation. If anyone's listening and can prove me wrong, if you can think of anything.
No, I can't. No.
There was a George Reeve 1950s Superman movie, but I think that was made for TV.
Yeah.
I thought Barbarella was the first, but that was 1968. This was 66.
This was 66.
So, but if it is, it's certainly an early one. If it isn't the first, I think it has that real comic book feel on screen, especially 60s with the music and the colours and.
Yeah.
It was fantastic seeing on the big screen, I think.
I was happy to see the sort of bang, pow, boom, swash. That was a great scene. I mean, obviously the scene's very sort of the continuity and stuff. You get viewed. 1 minute he's got a headset on, the next minute he hasn't, and then he's got it back on again. And he's hanging out the helicopter, but then he goes to them and he's not out the helicopter yet, you know. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
The one thing I really noticed on the big screen, I've watched this on TV a lot, is the use of stuntmen. That have you picked up on this?
every time they're in the helicopter from far back, it's clearly like Robin's got a different haircut completely. There's a lot of different Riddlers, but that adds to the charm of it. And I think because this version of it is a comedy, they probably didn't make that much effort to make it not look like that, because that even then it was seen as a comedy, a joke. So that therefore I think that adds to it.
Yeah.
And it's my favourite scene in any movie with a bomb as well.
Oh, God.
Because if you haven't seen this movie, where were you? Firstly, when it was shown there, and secondly, do try to watch it. Any closing thoughts?
My favourite part of it was the shark.
That's
that was absolutely brilliant.
Double bill with Jaws would be fantastic.
Oh God, absolutely. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us, Ian.